Welcome everyone. This is the Educator's webinar or Watercooler. And today we are going to focus on the topic of phenology, perfect timing. And we're going to start out with Haley Wickline from the University of New Hampshire, Leitzel Center, and all the work they've been doing on the phenology protocol. And then we'll hear from Cheryl Williams and Ervin. I'm Jody Haney from Bowling Green State University Excite Learning Partnership here in Ohio, and I'm now also connected with the U.S. Globe office. Haley, take it away.
All right, awesome. I'm going to just share my screen. We're so excited to have you all here, and more people are joining, which is awesome. This webinar is part of our North America Phenology campaign. And we're super excited to have two awesome educators here with us. Ervin from New Hampshire, who's an elementary school math and science specialist, and Cheryl Williams is up in Alaska, teaches high school. And before I sort of introduce more and let them share how they're doing this with their teachers and students, I wanted just to talk a little bit about the campaign and some of the resources we have available. And so we're really excited. This is our first year of running a phenology campaign in North America. And right now what you're seeing is our website. And we started this in the early fall, but it's not too late to start taking your measurements if you haven't yet. So here on our website, we have a little intro. So this is Jen Bourgeot, who will be on the call later on. She's the United States country coordinator. And Kevin O'Connor is the Canadian country coordinator. So we're partnering with Canada for this. We also have a little email list. So if you're interested in joining to receive emails, my colleague Alicia Carlson, who is our outreach lead, sends a little email every Monday with a reminder to do your measurements and shares resources and upcoming events through that. So you're welcome to join. And once we get, I think probably we'll keep this going for the spring for bud burst and leaf out. So we'll be using that email list for that as well. We also have, I'm just going to sort of run down this quick list of resources here. And so we have a couple of just general phenology resources. These we've pulled from lots of different places. So some of them are more kind of getting started, some background science of fall colors. I love these year in the life of a tree playlists. They run through all different tree species, 1 minute time-lapse videos. So a lot of different resources here. We do have a Padlet where we are able to all share with each other. So if you have a resource or something that you're using with your students or citizen scientists, you can actually add it to the Padlet so that we can share ideas all together. We have developed a number of quick, very short tutorials on the Green Down protocol. So these are 2 to 5 minutes that help walk you through how to do the protocol. And we broke them up. So selecting a site and a tree to monitor, things to consider, how to observe your tree. And then the last one is how to use the Globe Observer app when you're making your measurements, if you want to use the app to record your data. So these are all available. They're super short. We have some information about where to find a plant color guide or different alternatives that you can use. We've also pulled all of the Globe learning activities that are relevant to phenology and split them up by grade level. So if you're looking for some learning activities around these, we have these all linked and described here. And then the last part, which we're very excited about, is our webinars and scientist videos. So we'll post this webinar here after the event. We also have linked to a webinar from Dr. Elena Sparrow, who's an amazing Globe partner in Alaska, who actually helped work on developing some of these protocols. And then we have started doing some interviews with phenology scientists. I can see Ellen smiling because this top one is my friend Dave, who has been in Ellen's class. So these are really awesome, quick 5 to 9 minute videos Q&A style. They talk about how, why did they want to become a scientist? What's a research question they've tried to answer? Why is studying phenology important? And these are scientists that study all different aspects of phenology. So Dave studies amphibians and reptiles. Allison studies grasslands. Alex is looking at the vernal window. So we have a whole bunch of different videos, and they're really quick. So we're super excited about those. We're continuing to add them throughout the fall. So you can check back here and see if there are more scientists to check out. And the last thing I wanted to share is we also have started a YouTube channel that's specific to the United States globe. So that's where we're really housing all of these. So you can see I've actually added one more just this afternoon that we haven't gotten our website. So one more scientist interview there. And then as we have different water coolers, because we hold a lot of these water cooler webinars on all different topics throughout the year, they are posted to our YouTube channel. So we had a great one in September about the eclipse that you can check out. So that's my whirlwind tour. And we're so excited that everyone's here, and we're so excited about the campaign and what we are going to listen to tonight. So I'm going to stop my share. And I'm going to introduce Ellen Ervin, who's going to talk first. And I'm especially excited Ellen's here today because she was actually my 5th grade teacher and is now an elementary school math and science specialist. 5th grade was an amazing year. So, and I worked with her this past year on getting going with Green down our school, and she's just done such amazing work with it. So I'll let you take it away, Ellen.
Great. All right. Thank you, Haley. So I'm Ellen Ervin. I'm the math and science specialist at Moheramet Elementary School. We're in New Hampshire in the Seacoast region in a town called Madbury, right next to Durham, right next to the University of New Hampshire. Couple things I just quickly am proud about our school. I've got a picture of pumpkins there because every spring we plant pumpkins and then we harvest them in the fall, and we have a pumpkin stroll where kids carve their pumpkins and they put their pumpkins out in the woods, and the community and family comes at night, and that's a pretty cool thing about our school. And we also have a sugar bush that we manage, and this is a picture of our sugar shack. So it's a great little K-4 school located kind of near some woods, so we're able to do this green down. And we also do from Globe, we also do the frost tube, and we do green up. So frost tube with the 1st graders and green up with the 4th graders. The first part, I think, is kind of like engagement and getting students kind of interested and excited. And I do, kind of try to introduce things with the phenomena, and that's kind of similar to what's kind of encouraged with next generation science standards. I'm sure most of you know about the NGSS, but we have adopted that here in New Hampshire. And so I start off this whole thing with, I'm working with 3rd graders. So they're, about 8 years old. And we start off with an indoor activity where I show the students a series of photographs or phenomena. And I ask them to think about, what do you notice and what do you wonder? So I just have 4 photographs that I just put up on our board. And this is the first one. And just kind of spend a couple minutes, and they're just kind of looking and writing, just kind of getting them in the mood. I'm not really telling them anything about what we're doing yet. Some of them might be noticing that, there's evergreens, there's some deciduous trees, or they might just talk about the fog, or I don't know. So they write a few notes and start to wonder. And this is the sheet that I just created. So for each picture, they have a box. What do you notice? So we spend a couple minutes there. And then what do you wonder? And then let's see, next picture right here, just kind of different kind of forest, just kind of interested in what do the kids know? What are they kind of thinking about? What might they notice? I see this as a little more of a evergreen forest. And then we've got this, so they might be, writing some of their observations or what they know about the colors, or what they anything they're noticing or wondering. And then this is the final picture. And you get to see kind of a range. Some kids might say, oh, I see an red oak leaf or a maple leaf. So you kind of can start to gauge what students know about trees and about the fall. So the next kind of activity, so this is with all 3 classes. So it does take a bit of time kind of doing, working with 3 different classrooms. But the next activity we do outside. And again, it's a little bit more of what do you notice? So we walk outside of the school, and there's a series of just like a little forest, a little kind of row of trees right next to the 3rd grade classroom. So it's really just like a 1-minute walk. And we go outside and we sit down, and I again ask them, what do you notice? And what are you observing? And then I ask them to make some predictions, and I have them, just writing them down, another kind of thing with they're writing on their clipboards. And what do you think will happen in 2 weeks? What do you think these trees will look like in 5 weeks? And then why do you think this will happen? What might be causing this to happen? So this is, about 5 minutes per question, and they're just kind of writing and quiet and not really, sharing a lot at this point. And then I collect everything and I kind of type up some things. So here are some of their observations. They're just kind of getting into looking at the forest. There are leaves and needles. There are a lot of leaves and needles. There are some oak trees. You can see recognize that there's some pine trees. So I just kind of, randomly pick some things here. Here's some of their predictions. Leaves will turn colors. Some leaves will still be green. And there's just something, pine trees will be taller in 2 weeks. I don't know. It's just very interesting, these 8-year-old kind of perspective and what they're thinking about. And then I say, how about in 5 weeks? And, some of them are seeing that the leaves will be on the ground, and they're mixing in more colors. There'll be some brown leaves. And then the last question, why do you think this will happen? What might be causing this to happen? Students really wrote hardly anything. They really didn't have many ideas. They wrote maybe some questions, so it was kind of interesting that just to kind of gauge, what they knew, that they were kind of, this is kind of new to them to think about like this cause and effect and what actually might be happening. Then I tell them we're going to work as citizen scientists. And then what is a citizen scientist? So I think I might have taken this. I don't know, Haley, if this is maybe right from Globe. I don't know of what a citizen scientist is. And then they're getting kind of excited. And I kind of have this kind of big question in red here. What happens to the trees as the growing season comes to an end? And then we talk about that the growing season Globe kind of brings that into this whole idea that there's these different time periods and between the end of summer and fall. So this is kind of what we're, this isn't going to go on forever. We're kind of looking at this little short period of time. And then skipping a little bit. And then I start to show them some of the tools. This is the color guide and that Globe offers as a way to kind of gauge the different colors. And there was someone on earlier, the student that had just been out, and she was reading off the numbers. And if anyone hasn't seen this before, this is what up close. This color is 5GY 6/10. And then I basically say, this is what we're going to do. We're going to go outside twice a week, and I'll pass out the clipboards. You'll have some data sheets. We'll record what we're noticing about the trees, the colors. Students will go to their tree and record the colors of each of the 4 leaves. And then when they're finished, they'll just sit on the sidewalk and discuss their observations. So that's just kind of the plan. And teachers love, the teachers I was working with, that if you have a real clear plan, what happens when they're done, they're going to sit down and have a discussion. Before we did it outside, I just kind of invented this myself, of this idea of just practicing inside. So I brought some fruits and vegetables and set up little centers, and students worked with partners and recorded, banana, apple, whatever, and recorded the color using the color guide. So this was kind of a fun way to get them to see how they were going to, figure out what the color was, how they're going to work together, and then how they would record those numbers. So that was a way also for adults to kind of monitor what's going on. So then the next time when they head outside, they'd be all set. Here's some of my kids out here checking out the colors kind of right at the beginning, and they worked in partners, and you can kind of see he's holding a color guide, and she's checking out the leaf, and they've got their clipboard. I also just kind of talked about that there's 4 leaves in this. So I talked about how the first leaf would be the kind of at the terminal, and they would have to figure out which ones would be leaves 2, 3, and 4. And then this was our data sheet. And it was obviously a big sheet of paper, but this was just kind of the top of it, just so you can see how it's organized. They'd record their date, the color, or if it had fallen, or if it was snow covered. And so, we went through many sheets of this because it was definitely through many recording sessions. Just for those of you in different parts of the country, I don't know, you might be interested in the kinds of these. All 9 of these were growing right in the forest right outside our, we have a lot of American beech around here, black birch, red and sugar maple, the locust, red oak is also quite a bit of that, and hickory, ash, and sumac. So we had 30 trees that we were monitoring, but 9 different species. And that was pretty fun for them to start to learn some of the trees. We posted this is a wall in our school. So that it's really cool to kind of let everyone know what's going on. So you can see in the center here, this has got kind of all their names. And I took that color guide, and I took the chips of the pieces and cut them out, and then they glued them to this chart. So you can kind of see, this is kind of I don't know, 6 or 8 sessions in. You can see these down here are turning red. And so just so that the whole school would kind of see what was happening. I also put up, because I think PR is really important, and kind of, we had our open house, and parents and scientists kind of came in and were impressed by this. And it's also fun for the other adults to kind of start to look at the trees in a different way. I also displayed the 9 species here at the bottom, had pictures of us doing our work. So that was a really cool thing to do. It kind of was time consuming because the kids would have to, get these chips that we cut out pre-cut and then glue them up. But it was fun. It was a good way to interact on a regular basis. The other thing that's, is tricky is, why is this happening? So we did some discussions partway through. I suggest kind of doing this, get going on it, start collecting data. But I had 3 different things that partly they came up with, but this is the cycles, January through December. This is Madbury, New Hampshire, where we are, the highs and lows temperature. So I put this up on a chart and, pass it on in paper too. And I asked them, what do you notice? What's happening? What do you think this has an effect? Does temperature affect the trees and might cause this change in leaf color? I also passed out the daylight hours, so they got to kind of see how the average day length was changing in their town, and they kind of thought, might this be something that's happening or affecting the change in the leaves? Rainfall, they kind of were interested in, and it turns out there is an algorithm where rainfall in the summer does affect. And the scientists who came in to talk to us talked a little bit more about how summer rain and summer temperatures affect the fall, change in the leaf color later. But we weren't really interested in answers at this point. It was just, some ideas, and they made some predictions. I just put this up. This is the next generation science standard, the practices that you might be aware of. I put this up because teachers sometimes feel that they have this content they have to cover. They're doing, they're doing forces, and they're doing butterflies, or they have certain things that they have to cover, and they don't see how the trees can fit into that. But there's also, in addition to the disciplinary, the core ideas, there's also their DCIs, the practices. And we, as you can see, asking questions, planning and carrying out investigations, exploring solutions, analyzing and interpreting data, communicating your information. So we were doing a lot of really important scientific work. Cross-cutting concepts are another part of the NGSS that I really am intrigued by and try to integrate into our science work. And as you can see, a lot of these kind of fit in with the Green Down protocol. And then this communication piece, I think, is great. So we, the third grade group, made announcements about our observations 2 to 3 times a week over the school announcements. They shared with different grade levels. We had some scientists from UNH come in and visit and talk about their research with what they were noticing about the changes in temperature and leaf changes and kind of any phenology work. So we had 2 or 3 different scientists come in. We had an amazing meeting with, I don't know if anyone knows Rhonda, people who are here from Alaska, but she's a third grade teacher in Salcha, Alaska, which is near Fairbanks. One of our classes met with her class for almost an hour, and we shared our data, and then they shared their data, and we kind of went back and forth and asked questions and talked a lot about the science. And then we started getting into, we kind of had somewhat of a script. It wasn't like a free-for-all. It was pretty organized, but it was very kind of kid-centered. Kids started to, what's your playground like? What do you do at recess? What books do you read? And then it was it was a great experience. And kind of towards the end, we talked about, what is it like there? It was the end of October, and Rhonda, the teacher, turned her computer to out. Well, actually, I think we did first. So we turned our computer outside, and they could see that forest just covered with red and yellow. It was beautiful foliage. And then we said, what does it look like near you? And she turned her computer, and it was like 3 feet of snow, and it was it was amazing. So as far as for kids really understand, kind of thinking about different latitude, what's going on in different places. So that was very powerful. And I just actually emailed with Rhonda the other day, and so she knows she's teaching now, so she couldn't attend. But then another thing, we had for a share out at a sustainability dinner in our community at the high school. And I don't know, I think there were like 300 or more people that came, and Haley attended as well. But I just asked kids who would like to come, and it was kind of like 2 days before. And I don't know, I had a group that came, and they stood by our posters and just talked with community members and told them all about the project. So I really didn't say anything. They were telling everybody. And here's a picture of one of my students. Here's a poster, we kind of put together of the different kind of some of our data and what we were learning, and some pictures of our work. So she did a great job. And there's some other kids, and we shared our green down as well as our frost tube work and green up work. So that's it. There's my girls. And I don't know if anyone wants any of my sheets that I created or anything, or wants to communicate. This is my email. So I would love to hear from you.
Well, I know I'm not just speaking for myself. I'm sure there's many who feel the same way I do at this moment. I'm blown away by that presentation, what you're able to do with third graders, and the sophistication of what you accomplished. And it gives me great pride to be an educator and great hope for our future. So thank you for sharing that. That was really wonderful. And now, Cheryl, you have a really tough act to follow, but you can take it away. And anybody who has questions, you can drop them in the chat, and hopefully we'll have time at the end to take care of some of those.
All right, are you seeing my full screen?
Yep, looks good.
Okay, all righty. So I'm Cheryl Williams. I've worked here in Alaska for over 25 years. For the first bit, it was the town 10 miles away, and then now Palmer High School, which is about an hour north of Anchorage. So we're on the road system. For those of you know a little bit about Alaska, we still have Fred Meyer and all the stores, not like the smaller villages that are way more remote. And so I guess just a quick intro to how I got myself in this situation. I was a beginning teacher, pretty overwhelmed, feeling like 23 and very ignorant in the whole world of teaching high school science and biology. And I was lucky enough to see about the Globe class that Elena was doing, Elena Sparrow up in Fairbanks and her crew. And so, you know, even Globe is overwhelming, right? There's so many different things that you can do. And so they kind of encouraged me, just choose one, just choose a couple. And at the time I was like, you know, I really wish that I had something that my students could do outside, because we have these cross-country trails that go around the school, and some days I just don't know what to do with them. So if we could just go outside, that would be great. And so we started doing Green Up and Green Down. And like I said, it was more of a survival strategy than anything I ever thought would turn into 20 some years of data collecting. It was mostly just something I could do in the fall and in the spring when the weather was decent, and get the kids outside walking around. And so that's kind of my story with how this happened. And I've done lots and lots of different things through Globe. But the one consistent thing for almost every year has been getting the kids out to do Green Up and Green Down. So I thought I would kind of try to summarize some of it. Like I said, there's been things that I do for a few years, and like everyone, and you switch and do something a little bit different, and different ways I've connected it to different places in the curriculum and so forth. So the way it usually ends up being like almost the first week of school for us, because if I don't get it done right away, our leaves are already changing color. So we start with this kind of being after the first couple of days of just general how to be a student stuff, but with what is Globe, and then what is Green Down. And I'm hoping I can share this presentation on the Padlet, just so that all these links and stuff, I'm not going to show them now, but I just pulled this off of my Bell question. And the first video is just in general what Globe is about and how it works with teachers and scientists and its connection with NASA. And then I like the second video because it's an international school that is doing Green Up and Green Down, and talking just so they really get that connection that this is happening everywhere. This isn't just something I cooked up to torture them. And then the third video is very close to me because it's the learning expedition in Ireland that I brought some students to. So it opens up to them that, hey, there's opportunities with this if you want to do a little extra. And when these opportunities come up, I'll ask who's interested, and then you can let me know. I also talk a lot about the satellites, just in that, to me, that's the really close connection of why they're doing what they're doing. And I think that especially high school kids need to know that their data is important, and that there is some incentive for them to put some effort into doing it accurately. So having them understand that, yes, we have these satellite images, but we need these ground truthers who are going to go out and double check what the satellites are seeing, and give Globe or NASA that data. And so I'll kind of jokingly say, you guys can put this on your resumes or, you know, your job applications that you've worked for NASA because you've gone out and collected this data. And I said, you know, Globe is really this genius idea of, you know, scientists always want more data. Well, how can we get a huge amount of data is by having students and teachers go out and collect it and then send us the data. So that's kind of how I try to hook them in, as far as just an introduction to what we're doing and why. And I will plug, I've been using this year the new videos that you guys have been posting about the scientists. I just started showing one like each day so that they could kind of get the background as we were going through this. And now I see you've got 2 more. So I'll try to plug those in, because I really want them to know that their data is being used, and that these methods that we're using are part of a bigger picture of data collection in general. Okay, so some of the logistics of just how do you take, like, you know, in different years, I've had anywhere from 3 biology classes to probably 5 or 6 biology classes. So you've got hundreds of kids going outside. I've learned everything through failure. So everything that didn't go well, then I try to figure out a way, how can we have that not happen again? I guess I do have to tell you not to climb trees, everything from, you know, little things like that. So some of the mistakes I made when I started doing this at the first school, Wasilla High School, then I kind of got this wonderful opportunity to start over when I moved to Palmer High, because it's new sites, right, as far as globe and your site definitions go. So initially, like, I had them all make their own sites and name their sites, and oh my God, it was ugly. It was really embarrassing what they would put in there on the Globe website. So when I came over to Palmer, I was like, okay, I'm going to be more organized about this. And we happen to have a Frisbee golf course on our cross country trails. And so I used those as just landmarks on our site so that I could say, okay, every year students are going to go to this location. They're still going to get to choose their own branch and do their own data collection, but that site has already been defined so that when I go to enter the data, it's a little more organized. And so part of that, also a mistake I made in Wasilla, was letting them choose any tree that they wanted. And so as I did more like reading into the protocol, it's supposed to be the dominant tree species. And we don't have a lot of diversity in our trees. So it was pretty easy to go out and figure out, okay, birch is our dominant tree. So now I don't give them a choice. Everyone's doing birch. And so we have our sites defined as like birch 1, birch 2, birch 3. And that seems to keep it a lot clearer, or at least I hope it's clearer for anyone who's trying to look at our data. So like I said, each class, they're in their groups. They get assigned to a location. They go to that location. The very first time I send them out, because I'm not there with every single group, I do a lot more checking and just verifying that they're doing things properly. So I've told them all of the protocol requirements. It needs to be south facing. It needs to, you know, the dominant tree species, different things. But I tell them to stay at their spot until I come and actually check it. So, okay, where's your flagging tape? Well, that's not south facing, and then we fix it. Or that's not a birch tree, and we fix it. So that they don't get like 2 or 3 data points into their data collection, and then I realize that they've done something wrong. And I really just do that the first time. I also make sure that they're writing down the color codes correctly. I bet you anything the 3rd graders do a better job than my high school kids when it comes to documenting their data, because they cannot seem to get it through their head that they have to write down the whole thing. And they'll come back with just 5GY. I'm like, there's a whole bunch of 5GYs. I need to know which one. So just reinforcing, like, oh, it's ridiculous how much I have to check on them. So, I also have splurged a little bit when I've gotten money with this Write in the Rain paper, because yes, it's Alaska and it's going to be raining a lot. And that way, if it does get wet, it's not destroyed. I bought them some fancy clipboards, which you can kind of see there on the bottom. So hopefully they actually have a pencil. So that's not the problem when they get out there and they couldn't write it down. They keep their color sheet in there, their data. Paper is on the top. I just switch those out for every class. I learned the hard way that if you leave all 3 classes on there, they'll write on the wrong one, or they'll lose the other classes. And so it's a little bit more work for me to just kind of keep that updated. But that way, everything's in one spot. I can count the clipboards, and hypothetically, that means all the kids are back when we come back. So yeah, it's just a lot of logistics. And I've found the more time I spend into training them initially, like, here's how we're going to go outside. Here's where we're going to meet. Here's the time we need to meet here. There's probably schools where they wouldn't be allowed to go out and not be supervised. So I've told them that, like, if we screw this up, we might not be able to do this anymore. And we've been doing this for a long time. So don't be the ones who screw it up. And there've been a few incidents, we could call them, but considering the amount of time I've sent them outside, it's probably pretty low overall. So that's to teach them how to go outside safely, teaching them like what your expectations are. And then also I've found like having this map of the school trails helps them that first time, even though I do like a scavenger hunt on one of the first days of school where they have to go out and find these locations and take pictures and whatnot. So hopefully they're somewhat familiar with all of the trail system, but this gives them, and it tells them who is supposed to be with them and where they're supposed to be. And I still have to move some kids around, but at least as far as like maybe administrators go, it's clear who they're supposed to be with and where they're supposed to be, so that there's not a whole lot of questions about that. But yeah, it is something that always kind of makes me a little bit nervous. So that is some of the logistics. Let me see if I forgot. Okay. So these are just some pictures like this on the first day they go out. This is the handout that's on their clipboard. And it just tells them very, very specifically what I want them to do. Reminding them of putting the full color code, waiting at your spot until I get there. I give them an assignment to do while they're waiting for me, because some of them are going to get done and have extra time. And then I also, because believe it or not, like the kids aren't super familiar with what the different trees are. And so at that time of the year, the easiest way to differentiate like birch from cottonwood is just by looking at the shape of the leaf and the edge of the leaf. So I send them out with that. This is what the data sheet, the actual globe data sheet looks like. This year, I forgot to do it, but usually I write in before I copy it. I'll put in Palmer High School. I'll put the scientific name of the birch tree already written in there and the year, green down cycle 1, so that stuff's all like pre-done, and I'll have those data sheets later and I don't have to worry about whether or not they put it on there. For their study site, I write the number. So they're at Frisbee Golf hole number 6, so they go to 6. And then, each week, at least the first few times, I double check that they're actually writing things down the way they're supposed to. So that's just some of the kind of the busy work that I have to do to get ready for it, but it really doesn't take that long. I've gotten pretty fast at it. So then you get to the end of the season, and believe it or not, like today I sent out the last, there were like 6 of my 9 groups still had some leaves. And when they came back, they were all gone. So they're done with their green down data collection for the year. And so now it becomes like the part that I'm not very good at. I procrastinated. In fact, like sitting right here, these are my May green up data sheets that I haven't entered on the Globe website yet, but I will, I promise. And I don't like letting the students do it. That's another lesson I learned from Wasilla is like, when they enter it, there's stuff that didn't even make sense. It fell off and the next week it was back and it was green. And so I kind of look at the data sheets, make sure it makes sense, and enter it myself, or have, after I've looked over them, sometimes I'll even give up a little control and let one of my TAs do it. But that way I know that the stuff that's getting sent to Globe at least makes sense and doesn't make us look stupid. There is the app though, and I'm sure that you guys have done some trainings on that. I did it myself once. I went out and it was super fun for me because I've done the data entry and stuff before. Again, I don't know that I would trust high schoolers very much. I mean, I should, but you're just going to have a little bit more area of error there on if they're doing it correctly. And then again, just having these really usable locations has been super helpful for me, because this is what it looks like when I go to the Globe website. And so I have my Birch 1, Birch 6, whatever, and I can just every year upload the data for that location, and usually works pretty good. And I love the happy faces when I'm entering data. That still, it's been there a long time and I like it. So other opportunities are just kind of different directions that I've gone with, just using, I mean, the very basics is just that they collect the data and you enter the data and they get to go outside. I'm happy with that. But there's other things that I've found because of it. So there's the regional science fairs, which most of you are probably pretty familiar with. And I've used the green down and green up data for that. I've had many ways that I've been able to put seasonal changes or phenology into the curriculum. Land cover is another one of the first things that we cover at the beginning of the school year. So I also have them go out and do that. And then that overlaps with their satellite and being able to use the Observer app and stuff again. I've overlapped it with like photosynthesis and plant pigments, where they go out and find leaves of different colors. And then we try to do where you separate the pigments and take a look at that. Just talking about like the earth science of the tilt of the earth and seasons, you can work it in there. There was one year we were looking at, well, what other things could you use as data sets to help understand when the seasons are changing? Because there's this big question, especially in Alaska and Arctic regions, like, are we seeing a lengthening of our growing season due to climate change? And so kids came up with some really fun ideas on that. They were like, well, when we change our tires from, regular summer tires to studded tires, and talking to the shops that do that, and just looking at other ways that you could get data. We do this Banana Ice Classic where a tripod tips over and people win money based on their guesses on what time that's going to happen. And so you've got long-term data sets for other climate change things And I wrote down a couple of notes too of some other things. Oh, the other thing we study this time of year, right at the beginning, is just ecosystems. And so I've found a lot of ways to overlap the phenology stuff when we're talking about biotic and abiotic factors. And like one of the test questions on the review was to list 3 biotic changes that happen as summer turns into winter, and then 3 abiotic things, you know, so it gives a chance to connect what we were talking about with the leaves to just the very basic vocabulary and content that they're supposed to know. The other one I've done is using it as part of an investigation. So if you're looking at more of the science fair thing, the third graders idea, actually I remembered that I did this for a few years. I would send them out with also some, usually just thermometers. They love those infrared thermometers where it looks like a little gun and they could take temperatures of everything. And so I would send them out and they would do like the leaf temperature and the surface of the soil temperature and the air temperature. And so if they're doing that every time, then they can come back, and at the end of the season, once all the leaves have fallen off, I organized all the data. So it was kind of easy for them to see, this is what our air temperatures were. This is this is your leaf data. And then they would just choose, you know, we're curious to see if this fill in the blank influences when green down happens. And so then it's a very, well, what should be a simplistic kind of correlation where they could do the math that they're also doing in their math classes if they're that far along, and looking at R values and stuff like that to take it to a more advanced level. So again, I'll probably remember more things that I've done with this later, but this is what I've got for right now. So I wanted to mention this one. It's a really quick lesson you can do. It's basically just a worksheet that I found a long time ago, and I'm not sure, maybe it's already referenced on your learning activities, but I found this is a good one to just kind of cement that idea of green up and green down, or how green things are and how long their growing seasons are, because they're basically matching these 5 locations, which match up with these 5 land covers to these 5 lines on the graph, and then filling out this worksheet to go with it. So I found that one to be really valuable. Then this was if you wanted to go more into the land cover side, and I wasn't sure if I'd have too much time, so I put this at the end. But there's what I call like the old school on the ground transect data collection. And then now you can also do it with the app. And I find both processes are very valuable because it gives the kids a chance to actually do a transect and see how we sample an area. But then this on the app is just a ton of fun, where you get to do the north, south, east, west pictures and then do your percentages in each picture. And then it also gives you a classification of your land cover. So I overlap this lesson with the phenology stuff also. So anybody has any questions or wants any of these resources, I'll try to get them on the Padlet. But like I said, it's really just been an accident that I ended up with all this data. I thought I put that on here somewhere. Oh, this one. So this is our actual data, and I needed to update it. I was going to do that this year or today, but it just didn't happen. So looking for any trends in the number of when basically green down and green up are occurring. And their overall conclusion was that no, we don't see a huge correlation for anything, but it's definitely kind of impressive to see that many years of data. So anyway, that's what I've got.
Well, thank you very much, Cheryl. And I'm looking at Jen's picture, and she's smiling the whole time you're presenting, because she loves land cover and she loves phenology, and you just knocked it out of the park with all of what you shared. So again, just to watch how high school students this time around are able to develop data literacy and this comprehensive approach of taking them through that whole unit, I think is just really powerful. So thank you for all that you do and for sharing that with all of us. It's nice because we have some time for some question and answer and comments. So anybody who would like to, you can either drop a question in the chat, or you can unmute yourself, or we will unmute you if you need help. And let's have some conversation around this.
Hi, can I ask a question?
Please.
I was wondering how the teachers, I introduced my granddaughter earlier who was doing it in 3rd grade, and we're one-on-one. But I was thinking with the elementary kids, when so many kids were doing the green down, how difficult was it for the students to be able to manipulate the leaves, mark them without, we're so careful when we're doing our green down that we don't pull a leaf off of the tree or break the branch. But with little kids, it has to be low. So I was just kind of wondering how the kids did in terms of manipulating the branches and the leaves themselves.
So I actually chose all the trees and I did a tape around them and put numbers on them. So I did that part ahead of time. It's just with their age and everything. I just thought, I love the idea of choose a tree, choose a branch and all that, but there's just, I don't know. So I did that, but then I just kind of modeled it like you don't grab the end of it, and with green up as well, because you're going to pull the buds off, but you just kind of, you touch the tree, you know, kind of a foot or 2 feet in and just kind of gently pull it down. And I tried to find, there was a few that were hard to reach and I put a couple tall kids to have those, but they were kind of, right in front of them. So they didn't have to do a lot of touching. I don't think anyone pulled a leaf off. I thought it would happen, but I don't think there was ever an accidental falling, early falling by pulling off. So I think it seemed to work. It was 2 partners, so they would hold, one person would hold the color guide and the other one would just kind of hold it next, the leaf, the branch next to it, and it seemed to work.
Thank you.
There are 2 comments in the chat. I just want to, they're not really questions, but comments. Christy Buffington said an exchange student from Thailand used Cheryl's data last summer in a globe investigation. I think that's super cool. And then Darian said, this was so helpful, Cheryl. I have 3 high school interns this fall, and one of them might be interested in green down. It'll be my first time experimenting with this protocol. So Darian, I'm sure Cheryl would be happy to help you out if you get stuck somewhere along the way. And Cheryl, I really love that you said how much you learned from mistakes. That's so right on the mark, right? We all do, or we all should at least, embrace those mistakes and try to figure out how to pivot based on that. Other questions?
When you said, like, how do you manage the kids not knocking the leaves off? I had kids bring the leaves back. I'm like, no way. Did you seriously just do that? Like, usually that's why I have them. I check that first time, is because the first years I didn't, and they would say, look, we got, oh, okay, don't start over. Yeah, they'll do every mistake possible. And that's how you learn what to tell them. Not that they listen, but.
We definitely had the data, sometimes if you're not keeping track and you'll look at someone's clipboard and you're just like, oh my gosh, like this group, there's always going to be a pair that just is not figuring out how to do the data. So I think, I love what Cheryl said about just right at the start, really. And that's what I'm going to do with our green up, to spend the first few weeks just really making sure you look, instead of, 4 weeks in noticing like, wow, like what's happening with this data. And I've taken kids back out, not like in a disciplinary way, but just like, this doesn't make sense. Can we go out? So I'll take a group out, just the 2 of us or a couple groups, and just like, let's measure this again, or let's look at this again. So it's just part of, that's what scientists do too, I think. So it's good modeling.
Any other questions or comments?
Can I ask another one?
Yes, you can, David. You get 2.
Thanks. In one of the things that I've noticed, and I think it's probably a software issue, in sharing the data through the Globe Observer app and sending the observations in, oftentimes you'll get an error that there's something wrong with the data, but not an exclamation point showing up. And if you wait a while, the data will show up on the Globe website. So it has been sent. And I wondered if other people were noticing that, or if that's been a software issue.
I will say that there has been some chatter back and forth about this, Dave. I saw an email come in the other day about sending data and that some of it's not showing up, but that, let me see if I can find the email. There was something about that you're sending it in Christy, were you involved in that string?
I actually made a Flipgrid video to document what was happening with a student trying to send observations. And this student has 31 observations that never got sent. And I think it's because the student was bundling and started making a bundle as soon as it got, the student was able to get Globe trained. So I guess, yes, David, and we don't need to take up time here, but there have been updates and we're trying to resolve this. And Jen, it might be a different string, but there are some situations where the Globe Observer app has data that has not been able to send. So we are trying to do that. And then Cheryl, David, we can chat about that in a minute. But I had a question for Cheryl, actually, because I'm in the midst of working with students as well this semester.
Yeah, so let me just, before that, let me just kind of come back around to this one, that it's really interesting that because we've had this campaign, and also because of the European Phenology campaign, there's been a lot of interest in making sure that Globe Observer works correctly in terms of the phenology data. And we are finding these bugs in it. And so we just added all the data information team, just added all the phenology data entry to the Globe Observer. And, so now we're kind of testing and working through everything because they just did it. And so this is great that people are noticing these things, and to make sure that you're sending them to the community support team, to Globe partners, we need to keep the conversation going. If you see something that's not working, please let us know, because again, these things were just added to the app. And if it's not working right, then we want to make sure it works right. It's just bad timing that we're finding all this out, but I'm not sure we would have found it out earlier either, because people weren't necessarily entering the data through the app. They were using the traditional methods.
And Jen, one of the things, I know Christy has that question, is that it does, because I'm doing this one-on-one, it is showing how important it is to keep data in a traditional handwritten kind of thing, and then upload it into the data or into the Globe Observer. So both of those pieces are really important for collecting your data and having a copy of it. So that makes it kind of interesting too. Thanks.
Back to you, Christy.
Well, first of all, sorry that I left. We've had 2 fire alarms today, one in the morning and one in the afternoon. So I missed a lot of your presentation, and I will go back and listen to the recordings, but it sounded awesome. And Ellen, thanks for doing frost tube. So my question is for Cheryl. You've got high school students who have the app, or whose parents might allow them to add the Globe Observer app, and some probably whose parents won't let them have the Globe Observer app. So you're managing like different accounts. How do you do it with so many students?
So it has been kind of 5 years ago, the atmosphere was bring your own device, and don't fight the phones, because high schoolers and phones is continually an issue. Just try to get them to use their phones as part of their educational experience. So I was pushing them more to use the app, and I'd have the whole class try. And you're right, like whether their parents have it blocked so they can't add any apps without their permission, or they're just being stubborn, or they'll tell you that there's no memory or their battery's dead. It is have battery as soon as you don't want them to do science. So I went from kind of fighting that battle 5 years ago of really encouraging them to use the app and just getting a little bit of resistance, but probably got the majority of them to at least try it. To this year, we went 2 fists in, no phones, off and away. We don't want to see them. We don't want to hear them, nothing, because you guys, you know, adults can't control yourself. So we're not expecting kids to. No, 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 no. And so now it's like, oh, okay, well, now all these educational things that you were using your phones for, you feel like you're kind of sabotaging the whole system if you have them do it. So my little loophole was, I told them, well, when you're outside, if you want, you know, because I don't want to punish the kids who purposely left their phone at home because they didn't want it to be a temptation. You can try this. And then on Google Classroom, I put it as extra credit. And so I put it as, if you want to, you know, get permission at home and do this. Very, very few of them are doing it. And so I guess what I learned through the process, though, is if you want to do land cover on the Observer app, you can do that as a citizen scientist, and anybody can sign up and do it. But if you want to do green down, then you need to be an educator or a student. And so that's where, if I wanted students to do their own green down at home for extra credit, I had to request some student accounts and then give them the login and information to actually do Observer as a student attached to me, so that they could get to the data entry for green down. Otherwise, it just doesn't show up if you're doing it as a citizen scientist. And I think if I'm wrong, somebody can correct me, but that's where I've left it. Is it's just, I'm kind of not using the app. I'm using the paper version more so now, because that's something that's guaranteed that everyone can do. And then I just enter the data myself and then have the Observer app for extra credit. So it's not perfect, for sure.
Thank you for talking through that process.
Absolutely. And I like your idea of using TAs, Cheryl. I don't know if those are students that maybe come in during their study hall or something and help you out. I think that's a really good strategy too, if you can get some reliable students to help you out, because we all have been there. We have the pile of globe data ready to enter, right? And so anything, and if anyone else has any other ideas that you want to drop in the chat, that would be great, because that's a hurdle I think we're all facing, all of us together. So appreciated hearing how you're dealing with that. Well, it's the top of the hour. So I think that brings us to a conclusion, and we'll wrap it up. And I think just once again, we should all give a warm round of applause to both Ellen and Cheryl for this great presentation. And thanks everybody for participating. Please spread the word. Let's get some more educators on with us and keep doing good things.